Brecking, and welcome to Women's Tech
Wait,
Week.
start over. Sorry.
Ooh, you didn't hit record.
No, I hit record, but it took forever to start.
It's okay. That's okay.
All right,
Perfect.
ready? Go.
Hi, I'm Candace Matthews Brecking, and welcome to Women's Tech Week. On today's episode, we'll be talking about mental health and self-care with Bea Arthur. Bea is a distinguished figure at the forefront of merging psychology and technology. As a licensed therapist and an innovative tech entrepreneur, her groundbreaking work focuses on making therapy more accessible and personalized, leveraging technology to meet the evolving needs of today's society. As a speaker and thought leader, she frequently shares her insights on the importance of integrating mental health care with technological advances. Bea's passion and expertise make her an inspiring figure, driving change and promoting mental wellness in the digital age. Welcome to the show, Bea.
Wow! Who wrote that intro?
That's my one job. Intros. That's my one job.
With love, I could tell because I was like, "That's not my normal bio." Thank you so much.
Well, when I know folks, I can add a little pizzazz, and we know each other a little bit from years and years ago. So maybe we'll kind of start with your journey before we get into kind of self-care and the soft life and mental health.
Awesome.
So Bea, before we got started, you mentioned a little bit about your journey, and where should we start today?
Wow, where shall we begin? That's a great therapist question.
Where should we begin with Esther Perel?
Exactly. Shout out to Esther Perel. You're the best, baby. So I guess it all starts at the beginning for me, which is my love for psychology. I am a licensed mental health counselor. I have a dual master's in counseling and clinical psychology at Columbia University, and I still live uptown in Harlem. Shout out to Harlem. And I've been a therapist for the last 15 years, and I've been in what I call psychology technology for the last 13 years. And by that, I mean my last company was one of the first to move therapy online with video. With that company, we were on Shark Tank, NPR, MTV. And with that company, I was the first African-American female founder accepted into Y Combinator. And that was exactly 10 years ago, which is crazy. They've had some Black founders since then, not enough, but they've had some since then. So this is when tech was uncharted territory for brown people. And, this is when you and I connected. There was so few of us. In 2014, when I was in YC, there were I think 13 Black women in the entire world who had raised over $1 million in VC funding. And that includes Africa, mind you. So we were really out here, and forget about the numbers with women, so it was, but the good thing, I always say ignorance is bliss, because if I had known when I applied that I would have been the first Black girl in YC, I would have thought it wasn't for me. I would talk myself, oh, it's not, for me. Same thing when I started my company. It was called Pretty Padded Room. It was a nice place to go crazy. I started it out of necessity. I was, like I said, a licensed therapist, a domestic violence specifically. And whenever people would talk to me about it, they'd be like, I need a therapist. And before I went back to school for psych, I was in sales. I was in real estate. And, as you can see, that's all I do is sell. I'm very good at client facing roles. So this was back when Facebook was literally the meeting place. And it just made sense for me. If you're online already all the time, and I'm a therapist and I was online, and this was a new idea back then. People thought I was crazy. My own therapist and bosses and colleagues were like, that's against the law. Why would anybody want to do that? And it just made so much sense to me. And so I was a pioneer in the e-therapy space. If you look up my Shark Tank episode, I think it aired in 2013. It didn't go great.
Wow, Bea, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So a lot of one of the first Black women in tech, first Black woman in Y Combinator, and one of the first online therapy pioneers and platforms. And I did all of this without knowing it could be done. So as much as watch Candace's show, but if you have an idea, don't listen to too much outside noise. Just really kind of focus, pursue, be curious, and you'll be amazed at what you can create. So yeah, that's how it all began.
Bea, that's the entire purpose of doing Women's Tech Week and starting to have these conversations. A lot of our perspectives around tech are all from a male voice, and many times the white male voice. And even as I look at different media outlets around the country, even if there's a Black writer, it is still edited from a different perspective. And these are the perspectives that we are just not hearing at all. at all.
I really wish they would tell the truth. Stop lying. I'm telling you. Why do men lie? Like, I love dudes, but like, men be lying because it is a very different experience being a Black woman in tech. It is a very different experience being an outsider founder at all. If you didn't come up in the Valley, if you're not from the Google Mafia, the PayPal Mafia, like if you're from Indiana and you have a revenue generating tech platform, it will still be hard for you to get funding. One. Two, for some weird reason, it's like weird hero worship. Sorry, am I allowed to do that? This is like my jerking off motion. This weird hero worship that, like, in the Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk era archetype, like it was just you had to be that dude and know everything. And somebody just took a chance on an idea that's just crazy at work. That is not how none of this happened. We know Zuck stole the idea for Facebook. We know he bought and stole other companies. We know Elon did not found Tesla. He was the investor and he just put in a lot of money and bullied the actual founders, right? Like, we know that Y Combinator wasn't built in San Francisco. As much as they say move to San Francisco, it was built in Boston. You know what I mean? Like, so this is, we know that people weren't really living in the garage, maybe in their parents' cottage house and their parents' guest house. You know, we know this now, but and this is what I'm saying, they're not legends, they're myths. If you follow that, you will end up on the streets on fentanyl. Like, that is not how it works. Most businesses are built slowly and steadily. In fact, most of the million and billion-dollar businesses still operate off fax machines. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
all the move fast and break things, hire some crazy ass engineers, like move to Valley. That's bad advice, right? That's startup advice. And what I identify now as a businesswoman. I really don't like being a startup founder. It's like stressful, it's unsustainable. It gets really close, as we've seen many times, unethical when you're
Mhm.
trying to keep up with those pressure and that valuation and all that stuff. So yeah, it's a lot of learning. I'm really grateful for the journey. I've done things that I couldn't have done if I would have just stayed a social worker. You get to meet other founders, and this is what I really want people to return to. Let's center the heroes of these stories, the founders, not the investors. It's like the biggest case of stolen valor where, people like Peter Thiel get to sit up and like, oh yeah, it was early Uber. Nigga, you did not, you wasn't,
That
you know,
wasn't you.
it
You didn't
wasn't
build that.
you. Keith Rablois, it wasn't you. The caterer at these companies had more to do with their success than you did. You're just the money guy. You know what I mean? Like the bankers out here in New York, they're just the bankers. They don't have to act like they're changing the world. So I really wish people were more honest about what it's like, because then it wouldn't feel like such a personal failure. At our heart, founders are dreamers, right? And we're artists. I like to say I'm a business artist as well, right? And so anybody who has a dream and is nurturing it, don't make that harder for them. It already is, but they will feel like failures if they don't follow this exact path that doesn't work out for 96% of people. 96% of startups fail, even when they're VC backed, and even the ones that get acquired. I know several founders who have sold their companies just for the acquirer to shutter it. I know several founders who have fucked up their cap table just to get insane funding. And then a PE company kicks them out with no severance after 10 and 12 years. Talk about that sacrifice. I know people who got in divorces, lost their mortgages, stuff like that. And so shout out to the struggle, but be honest about it, so people don't feel like complete failures when you follow this very dangerous path that has only worked for literally maybe 100 people. So
Yeah, and to that point, you talked about kind of moving fast and breaking things, and, the mental health of a founder
yeah.
really, really suffers.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
I know we both know founders who have,
Mhm.
um, attempted
Yep.
suicide,
Mhm.
who've completed suicide,
Yep.
all of those things. We've known those people,
Mhm.
because we've come from this, no days off
Yeah.
mentality, and I think that doesn't work for us. So, from your perspective, you know,
Mhm.
how should a founder be running their business day to day when we worship the idea of going hard all day every
Mm.
day?
It's interesting, right? Because on the one hand, that is toxic advice, right? Like no days off, hustle porn, work in your sleep. But on the other hand, that came from the way it kind of is naturally. Like especially at the beginning, like when you're going from 0 to 3, which is where most founders should live, right? Once it gets to lawyers and fucking, all that stuff. Um, at the beginning, you do kind of have to be obsessed with it. There really isn't any other way. There's a lot of learning, even if you're not fundraising, like when you're tinkering and getting to product market fit, it is just kind of a natural obsession, and that is something that when you put all your focus and attention, it's just like any other thing, that 10,000 hours. That's kind of how it is. What we have to remember though is it's not supposed to stay like that, right? Eventually you have to delegate, eventually you have to grow, eventually you have to pause. And this was my path, especially when the story about how you fundraise, for example, they say, go out and announce your round, run a fundraising process for 30 to 60 days, get a lead, and fill out the rest of the round. That is usually not how it goes for most people. People will go out, have a really tough time finding a lead, maybe get some angels that'll be 25 to 100, and you're like, fine, I'll just get started with what I can. It's not enough, but you don't want to lose momentum, right? And you get this thing, now you have your MVP built, but you don't have the money for a marketing team. So then you have to stop what you're doing and go raise money for this, or you know what I mean? And that is mostly the stopping and starting of it, while being obsessed every day where you're not getting any money to be paid to do it. So I think people should be realistic about it. I think we should embrace having other jobs, especially shout out all to the parents. Like, I am loving my bachelorette life. I have no idea how working moms, working dads do it, because like I said, you have to be obsessed a little bit. You are naturally obsessed with this idea, this thing that you want to make real. That's just like a natural inclination of most founders, I feel. So yeah, pace yourself. You have to remind yourself it's a marathon, not a sprint. Something I really wish I'd done was pause every month or 3 months and reevaluate, realign, reprioritize, because otherwise it's a runaway train. You're very reactive. And when you're the CEO, you have to be directive. So really pace yourself, take those pauses to reflect and redirect. It's so important, because that's how you burn out.
How do you know when you're switching from that 0 to 3 and then ramping up? How do you
Mhm.
know when you should be seeking help?
Yeah, it's such a fine line, right? Because most of when people run out of money, it's because like they had headcount creep, right? They grew too fast, right? And everybody will tell you, get an office, get a CTO, get a COO, get chief of staff. These are people who, before you've made any money, sometimes you're paying taxes to this government. You know what I mean? Like, just waiting. Everybody's waiting around. But if you're scrappy for too long, just me doing it, like, you burn out, and it's hard to grow. So one of my friends, his name is Humble. He's actually the money manager for Issa Rae. Shout out to you, Humble. He is very, very smart. He's worked with lots of different businesses. And one of the best advice he gave me is the concept of I, we, they. And this is the journey for a business person, not a founder, a business person. So first it starts off as I, and that's when it's all up to me, right? It's my idea. I'm going to wireframe it. I'm going to do the projection models, the really basic ones. I'm going to do the deck. I'm just going to get it to something so it can present it. And a lot of people, this is where you get your octopus era and you're doing everything yourself, but you do it and you create something new and it's good enough to get money and investing in a team. Then you go to we. And we is when you're a team. And this is a really difficult transition for founders because, again, if you've been the only person on top of this baby and you dress it every day, it's really hard to delegate. You're used to doing everything yourself. If you don't like the way somebody's taking care of your baby, you will take the work back while still paying them. And then you'll wonder why you don't have any help, right? This is a really difficult transition managing a team of people. I struggled a lot with this. I'm a therapist, I'm a people person. I love people. I did not like managing people, right? Because sometimes you'll get the rock stars who are like, they don't need any micromanaging. They manage up, they just know what to do. And then sometimes you get people who are, good enough, but and that takes up so much drag. You can't hide on a small team. So that's where I failed. But if you do well at that, when it becomes we, then you evolve to they. And this is when you're the big boss, not a founder, but a true CEO, right? You've got 5 or 6 assassins and they are managing the company, right? And they're managing up to you. And that should be the trajectory, but it's a lot of stumbles and a lot of lessons along the way. So that's kind of like how you want to be thinking about your trajectory as a founder as you build. Eventually, you will not be in the daily meetings. You should not be in the daily meetings. You should not still be having all these to-do lists and still be doing some of the scribbling, like, because when you're focused on the little things, you can't focus on the big things. So yeah, so that's my advice on that.
I, we, they. I love that.
Yeah,
I absolutely love that. Um, okay, let's shift gears to self-care a little bit. Um, can self-care replace therapy?
Ooh, can self-care replace therapy? No, it takes a lot of things to be mentally
Okay.
healthy. It's not a one size fits all. You have different needs at different stages of your life. You have different needs at different times of the day. You know what I mean? So I think add as many things to your mental health toolkit as possible. So for me, for example, I really love myself. I don't know if you can tell, but I really love myself and I really appreciate myself because I've been through a lot. You know, I've learned a lot. And I think at the beginning of my career, I had a lot of imposter syndrome, but now I have the opposite of imposter syndrome. Like when I look back at what I've done, what I've made happen with or without money, with or without team, I'm very proud of myself. I can remember the struggle. I survived. When we talk about founder mental health, the reason I started The Difference, so my current company, The Difference, stands for the right talk at the right time can make all the difference. Can we
I
put a
love it.
little thing there for that? So, yeah, like with Dazzle.
That'll be post-production. It'll be beautiful.
You got the budget, right? No, I'm playing. Um, but so that actually started because Pretty Patter Room died. You know, even though we had finally raised money and we were on TV and every magazine, Talkspace came out of nowhere in 2015 and ate our lunch. Outraised and outpaced us, and then BetterHelp, and we were still this little rinky-dink thing that could. So when we died, a part of me died. You know, I'd been doing
Mm,
it for 5 years. It was the longest job I'd ever had because as a true entrepreneur, I quit. I was, sticking and moving a lot. It was what I was known for. I was getting evicted because I had paid payroll for over my rent for like 10 months. It was a very tough time for me. But of that, I got to write about my failure for Forbes. And then I started working with Forbes at a show and I was an editorial contributor there. So, like, let things have their season. And then I also called the suicide hotline 4 times in the last year when Pretty Patter Room was dying. And I'm okay with saying that because as a therapist, I know that like my body didn't want to die, just my mind wanted the pain to stop. My heart wanted that to stop, right? And even though it'll be better in the future, like in the daily reality of it, like if all you see is pain and darkness, like I understand, like it's hard. And so when I called, I think I called 4 times and twice they were like shitty, right? They were like, climb every mountain, like just like the nonsense
mhm.
live life, laugh, love kind of advice. But two of them were really good. And I was able to get the thoughts out of my head, get the energy out of my body, and get on with my day. And then after the fourth time, I was like, I can't do this to my family. I do have options, right? This is a passing thing. And because of that, that's actually what made me start The Difference. Because like I said, it's the right talk at the right time. And I don't want anything to get to that point. Most people go to therapy when it's at a crisis point. Most people get a divorce when it's at a crisis point. So I believe in preventative mental health care. Don't get Prozac after you can't leave your house for 5 months. Start if you diffuse these little things, even if they're petty. A fight with my mom, like little things, annoyed with my employees, like that builds up, and that cumulative stress is what leads to sustained chronic cortisol, which is burnout. Cortisol is the stress hormone. So that's what The Difference was meant to be, just kind of like we call them professional pep talks. I really wanted we built it out for Amazon at first because I hate the US health insurance industry. Damn, I sound like a hater. I'm mad at a lot of things.
You're not a hater, you're just calling out what's actually happening in the world, and that's it. We all know. We
We
all
see
know.
it. It's not a
Yeah,
secret,
we all
right?
know that the greatest country on earth has terrible healthcare, maternal outcomes, all of those
Even if
things,
you have
babies
a job.
dying.
Even
Yeah,
if you have a guarantee,
frozen children in different states. So, yeah, you're not wrong, call it out.
they would rather send kids back to the factories
Yeah, it's very
than
strange
give them
situation. So,
books.
preventative mental health care.
Preventative mental health care. So this answers your earlier question. Sorry for going off topic.
No, this is the best.
No, but like you need more than one thing to keep you happy.
Okay.
One, you need recovery time. Rest is part of the recipe. Period. Like you just will burn out. It's not sustainable. So yeah, God rested on the seventh day. You do too. I mean, this is what I'm saying. Like the last 2 years, I worked every Sunday during COVID, like when I lost people. And I think about it now and I miss so many parties, so many park days and stuff like that, that would have gotten me through, especially if the outcome was always going to lead to this. You know what I mean? So take care of yourself. Nobody is going to stop that train for you. Nobody else is going to make sure you take time for yourself. So to me, that's what actual self-care means. So it's not bubble baths, it's not, retail therapy. Self-care means taking care of yourself the way somebody who loves you the best would love you. So for some people, it's their partner. For some people, it's their parent. I'm a big time mama's girl. She's even on my desk. This is my mommy. Oh my God. Mama
Got it
Tina.
from your mama. That's what it was.
Yes. And my mama was a savage. Bitch, I got this shit from Tina. So she is an entrepreneur as well, first generation immigrant from Ghana, oldest of 8. So I was raised by that, right? And when we've really bonded over our entrepreneurship. And when I'm stressed out, she knows how to treat me, right? Like if I come home in a mood, she like will make some food. She'll text me and tell me it's out. And then she's like, oh, there's 90 Day Fiance on if you want to watch together. Like she gives me my space, right? So when I'm stressed out, I don't try to push, right? We have to know for ourselves when to push and when to pause, right? Because there's times we do have to fight. We do have to push through whatever mental limitations are doing it, whatever fear is keeping us from doing what we need to do. You know what I mean? But there's other times where you're not going to make a good decision from a desperate standpoint, from a malnourished standpoint. So I listen to my body, right? The body is the only thing that doesn't lie, right? Men lie, the media lies, but the body will not lie to you. So if you're not sleeping, if you're getting sick, just really pay attention to where your energy levels are at, because you want to optimize. You want to operate. You don't want to operate at a deficit. You want to be aligned, connected to source, resourced, and in a rested state so you can make good decisions.
So to you, what does rest mean? So
Oh, yeah.
I'm a big reader, and just recently finished a book called How to Keep House While Drowning. Um,
Ooh. Whew.
it's by Casey Davis. She's a therapist, and it's really good. As a person who has ADHD, I have help because I'm not a keep house kind of girl.
Yeah.
But and that's okay. That's okay. I'm good
Yeah.
at a lot of other things.
Yeah.
But to her, she says, rest is fun, rest is recharging, rest includes time autonomy, rest isn't being on a call, rest isn't even getting in the shower. And for those of us who have children, just like with the kids not around.
Yeah.
So to you, what is rest?
Ooh, I think rest is when, just like when you unplug your phone, like you are unplugged from all that noise, right? Because like as it's really hard for parents, it's really hard for people with a lot of responsibilities, but time to yourself, like whether like for example, for me, like I really like a shower, like everything's better after a shower. Some people it's a run. And so we have to identify ourselves what makes us feel better when we feel bad. Some people need to isolate, some people need to go out and party and like get recharged by the energy of other people. I really believe in the 3 S's. Number one, social health is a huge part of mental health. We are not meant to do this alone. Spend time with your friends. When Pretty Padded Room died, people that I had been so shitty to because I'd be like, I'm busy. Why would you invite me to your wedding? Like I said, I was obsessed, with the company and it got all my time. Those are the people who showed up for me. To this day, I don't think my dad knows what I do. He's like, oh, it's something with computers, right? Because it doesn't matter because I am loved and accepted and safe. So spend time with your friends and family. Make time for it. It will get you through. That's one, social health. 2, sleep health. When you're looking at insomnia, that is a number one tell for anxiety, which means your body is never fully off. This happens to a lot of founders where you're thinking about work literally in your sleep. So that is not a restful state. And again, for the long term, you're like, not just the success of your business, but your life, you need to sleep. It's like super important. I remember my old therapist was like, try and get 9 hours of sleep a day. And I was like, are you crazy? Da, 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 da. But I did it. And I, did the boring thing. I was boring before bed. I left my phone across the room and I would wake up smiling. And I was more productive on those days. So sleep health, that's number 2. I hope this is okay to say, but I'm also going to say sexual.
You can say
Sexual.
that. We're here for it.
Listen, and we're made for it, right? Especially ambitious, aggressive people, like you gotta get the energy out. And so whether or not that's dancing, working out, but you gotta move your body. The energy doesn't go away until you do something with it. So those 3 things really help shore up your stores of dopamine. For example, when I talk about the stress hormone cortisol, the natural antidote to cortisol is oxytocin, which is also known as the cuddle hormone, which is secreted when moms breastfeed, which is secreted post coitus after sex. Like it naturally like dissolves like the stress in your body. We have all these resources, but we have to use them. So social health, spend time with your friends and family, hug them. They actually say that 8 hugs a day is equivalent to 50 milligrams of Zoloft.
Hmm.
So try it. Sleep better, love better, and then love better. You know what I'm saying? So
So, V, how do you I appreciate you sharing your stories. I know for me, it's helpful to get those things out of my body. So if
yeah,
something traumatic happens, I
I
want to
can
talk about it, and I
yeah.
want to talk about it immediately. So
Mm,
people in my circle know about
mhm.
sexual assaults and trauma that have happened in my life. They know about, attempts that like yours, like all of those things.
Yeah.
And how can someone who's not huggy, who doesn't like to
Good
talk, how can they
question.
become more resilient to survive
Mm.
this thing called entrepreneurship and being in business?
Yeah, this is a good question because, like you said, like for you and I, we have to express it. And this is true. Extroverts think while talking, right? That's how they process it. Whereas introverts think while observing, right? Like, and it's their internal monologue and they're talking to themselves. However, you've got to process it some way or else that kind of like energy builds up. So if you have an introvert in your life, do not push them, right? Like, understand how they think and process. It's a really fantastic book called Quiet by Susan Cain that really helped me because my little sister were very opposite. I think she watched me growing up and she was like, I don't need that drama. So she's like very chill, very quiet. And I would always be like, tell me this, tell me that, and she's like, that's just not how I operate. Like, and in fact, like it makes me shut off like when I'm coming at her like that. And so learn how to treat people well, learn how to meet people where they are. And so I think for introverts, like you can't grow yourself if you don't know yourself. You definitely have to process it or share that energy in some way. In Spanish, they say, forgive my Spanish accent. In Spanish, they say, dolor compartida es dolor divida, which means pain shared is pain halved, right? Like if you tell somebody you are not carrying the pressure and the burden and the cloud of all of that thought, right? And usually it'll be like somebody will say the right thing so it seems more manageable and you're not taking it all yourself. So find a way to kind of like share the load.
That's a beautiful statement. That is
Yeah.
a really beautiful statement.
Yeah.
Yeah, pain
We're
shared is
not meant
pain
to
halved.
do this alone. Like humans are tribal animals. We literally need each other. Like I'm really big on connection. That's the whole thing. It's the only thing that's made me endure.
So, as we close out here today, can we talk about what you're up to right now? Like, what are you up to right now besides the difference? What's going on?
Well, I will say thankfully the difference actually had to pause last year, after SVB crashed, fundraising was not happen.
Oh, fair. Yeah,
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 a lot.
my personal bank account was locked up for a while. It was rough, girl. It was
Oof.
rough.
Yes, girl. So it was really tough because like we had just secured a partnership with the freelancers union, because we landed in the future of workspace. We want to go to market through non-employer based marketplaces because as I said, fuck the U.S. health insurance industry. And we need to meet people where they are. So co-working spaces, schools, gyms. So we had that lined up, but we finally finished the platform and then everything was paused. Thankfully, since then, I have been doing a lot more speaking engagements. I had a comedy therapy show with Roy Wood Jr. called
I
Cultivation.
saw that.
Yeah, we had been working on it for 2 years. That's what I'm saying. You really got to roll with the punches because we've been working on it for like a year and a half. And then the Daily Show got upended, and he was like, "Well, forget it. I don't think they're going to give it to me. Let's just like go all in on that." So we went all in on that. I started doing a lot more hosting engagements, like with PR Daily. I spoke for RBC, spoke at the Plaza. So I've been doing a lot more speaking. I'm writing a book about my experience in actually being a Black woman in business. It's called The White Man Within. So that has been really fun. And as you saw with my green screen earlier, I'm also working on a YouTube channel to relaunch my podcast, which was called Be the Change. So yeah, it's been really cool. Like I said, I'm a business artist first. So I'm just like I'm happier when I'm creating things, not the slog of building. So it's been a very pregnant pause. I'm embracing the mystery, and yeah, just enjoying this journey.
Oh, B, I love your energy. Thank you. Thank you for this today. And My final question is, where can we find you and your business online?
Yes. So if you go to thedifference.co, again, the right talk at the right time can make all the difference. You can sign up for our wait list there because we will be relaunching in May for Mental Health Awareness Month. And you can go to my personal website. If you Google B. Arthur, there is another one. There is another old white lady that is not me.
Hey,
So if you
we
go
like
there,
some Golden Girls.
who doesn't? Like, who doesn't like the Golden Girl? So, but if you Google B. Arthur Therapy, barthurtherapy.com is my personal website. And you can follow me there and contact me there.
Thank you so much, B. Thanks for joining us on Women's Tech Week.
Thank you so much for having me. Always good to see you, girl. And happy Women's Tech Week, everybody. Like, share.